Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking the time on a Thursday evening. And before I introduce Raj, I wanted to mention that today's episode is a very, very special one. It's the first one from Axel. Axel expands to AI Center for Startups and Excellence. It's a first of a kind Center of Excellence for Artificial Intelligence being set up at IIT Alumni Center, Bangalore. And it's also the 100th episode of AI Pod. And many of you know that AI Pod is a community of AI enthusiasts who consume one AI-generated podcast on AI every day. And today happens to be the 100th. And instead of having an AI-generated podcast, we thought we will do a live with human kind of a podcast. And that's why we are here. So it's a very, very special day for all of us. With that, let me welcome Raj. Raj is the founder and CEO of NxtGen. And he was my colleague many, many years ago in Dell as well. So we are great friends for a long time. And in fact, I saw one of his posts today on LinkedIn as well, acknowledging the kind of platform which Dell had set up for all of us to go on to do bigger things. So Raj, welcome. Thank you for making the time.
This is a great opportunity. Thank you so much, MDM. It's so nice of you to do this.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll chat for maybe 30, 35 minutes, just free form. We'll talk about a bunch of things and then open it up for questions. And folks, your questions you need to type into the Q&A box. You will see it on your screen. Q&A box is where you need to type. I'll look at it later and ask Raj the questions which you have. Please do not put it in the chat box because that's not something I'm looking at. So Raj, let's start right at the beginning. When did you start NxtGen? What goals did you have in mind at the time? What made you start it? And then just walk us through the journey till today.
Okay, we started in 2012, August 15th. And kind of you don't have anything when you start a company, you just have a registration. So I think we were more or less doing business in about a year's time. And we actually started with an ambition to do a data center platform. But what happened was that the data center required a lot of money and I couldn't do it with the savings that I had. So we started doing cloud. Very early in our interaction, friends in the industry, I got introduced to Intel Capital. They funded us first. So we bought about 10 acres of land in Bidadi. Subsequently, IFC, which is World Bank Group, and a Spanish company joined us. And we started building a data center. So we today operate 5 data centers across the country, but we focus only on cloud services. So we are India's largest domestic cloud provider. Basically, we run our cloud from 5 data centers, and we don't do much of co-location, but primarily infrastructure and platform as a service. You asked me what made me start. So actually, I was working in Reliance. And it was 7.5 years, and actually Reliance helped me to become debt free and plan for my kids' education, a lot of things, and life was too comfortable. So we thought, we have to have a new ambition. Otherwise, we're going to waste time primarily. It's not about anything else. And there were a lot of people who wanted to work with me. So I thought, why not we all come together and start NxtGen? That's how we started. But the most important thing I want to tell you about NxtGen is it's not about next generation of technology and all. The way we thought of NxtGen was that whether we can build a company that our next generation actually aspires to join us. Yeah, that's the thought process behind naming it as NxtGen. So it's been.
Is it working out that way?
Yeah, at least both my sons will. One of them is working with me, and the other one will come and work with me. But most importantly, now with more than 400 people, our average age at NxtGen is 28. So more or less, it's the next generation which is working with us.
That's very cool. In fact, you're one of the few people who turns entrepreneur after a certain age, after marriage, kids, and all that. Not many people, have the guts to start that late, and more importantly, have the energy to start that late.
No, I actually attempted it. I mean, before doing a job, but I think this is the best age. In some form, you actually think about things which are of reasonable scale. You also understand that you do business to make money. I mean, and you have to make it viable, and you also want to have more things under your control. Because when you start very fresh in your career, you normally have too many things out of your control. So I think the good part of starting late is that there are certain things which are taken care of, and you have certain experience. I think you want to leverage that. It's far easier to raise money as well, because you have some credibility of you have a history to showcase. Like Intel Capital's funding, we had nothing but a PowerPoint presentation. I actually didn't have a business plan as well. I think it works better. That's how it worked for me, actually. I can't say that what is better, what is not, but yeah.
Interestingly, talking about funding, it looks like the last round you raised was in 2015. Is that right?
Yeah. So consciously, what we are trying to do, what we tried to do was that we should not be dependent on the growth by external funding. The company should actually make money and fuel its growth. So in our industry actually is growing 30+%, right? I mean, so it's 25 to 30% last 10 years.
Mm.
So industry itself provides us a great opportunity to grow. But if you keep raising money, I mean, and your growth is dependent on money, it's not going to work. So we were like EBITDA positive from year two. So we always earned our salaries. We never burnt any capital. And, the philosophy was to earn money and spend it on growth. And that's what helped us. So we are also last year we also cleared off our debt because we need a lot of money. We are raising money, but the key thing is that we wanted to ensure that we are financially strong so that we can fuel the growth with our own earnings rather than from external sources.
Now, I know there are many entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs on the list listening to our show right now, and this is a great lesson for them as well. Being cash positive early on and sustaining it and bootstrapping. You've done a fantastic job. Congratulations on that.
Yeah.
So you said you have five, did you say five data centers? Where are
Yeah.
they?
So there's one in Bangalore, two in Mumbai, and one in Ahmedabad, and one close to Delhi in Faridabad.
I
So
see.
five locations. Two of them we run a government cloud, which is basically primarily meant to serve government customers, which is in Ahmedabad and Faridabad, and the others serve the enterprise, large enterprise mostly.
Oh, large enterprise. So you don't do much for startups, do you?
How can I beat free with free? Startups get a lot of free credits, and I can't offer that. I mean,
So
um,
you're saying that's where the AWSs and the Googles come in and help them.
yeah, I think they should build it there and then come and scale it with us.
So at what point should they come to you, Raj?
So whenever it becomes so, when you talk of our cloud, the differentiation is the ability to scale it and the ability to secure and ensure that you are able to still make money out of your business. I have moved about 400 companies off AWS so far, and many of them have become profitable after they've moved. So basically, we make good sense maybe when they're ready for growth. What I actually support quite a lot of startups. I mean, primarily what we offer them is I have 1,000+ customer base. I mean, they can take their solutions to those customers. And yeah, a lot of advice on how infrastructure can be, scaled without their involvement and, optimize it. Those are the things that we add a lot of value to the startups that we work with. We work with some AI companies as well, but
Mm.
primarily it is about ensuring that they have access to market. I mean, that's the primary goal of ours.
So at a growth stage, they can come to you, and obviously, since you mentioned that they come to you for cost reasons, is there any other reason they come to you for?
No, it's security. So what happens in a typical AWS kind of scenario is that I mean, you're on your own in a cloud.
Mm.
People are not helping you. So if you're not aware, if you're fully aware, I mean, if you're mature player, I mean, you know how to handle security aspects. But for a smaller company, it's better to work with somebody who knows how to handle, a secure transaction. Like my credibility comes from around the elections for the last two Lok Sabhas I've done. I mean, 8 years we've been running election commissions infrastructure. That's ridiculously large. It's one of the world's largest database. And so far, you haven't heard that, we've been breached. I mean, so that's
I mean, the very fact that we didn't know you're doing it is itself is a great, great news for you.
yeah, it's it's we're actually very proud of
So,
it
which means
because
state elections as well, right? Because the election commission is a
all
single
elections,
body, right?
yeah,
So all of them.
all elections. I
That's
mean, it's like a
phenomenal.
continuous process. It's not that it's a it's a load during Lok Sabha or something like that. I mean, India, there are perpetually elections happening, so there is a lot of work. It's actually the elections itself is not a load for us. It is the
Yeah,
onboarding process, the validation, a lot of internal processes actually drive the load.
I see. I see. Fascinating. Now, coming specifically to AI infrastructure. So, whatever GPU kind of capability you have currently?
So we have consciously thought that it's too early to commit ourselves to one GPU platform. So we are
Mm,
currently working with all the three of them, which is NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel.
mm,
And what we've done is we've picked up OpenStack as a layer above it and unified it with OpenStack, OpenShift kind of scenario.
mm.
So the choice we want to give it to our customers in terms of what they want to leverage, because Intel also did some good work, especially with companies like Bashini. They have helped
Mm,
them build some very good multimodal use cases.
mm,
Um, so I'm not saying that, we're betting on Intel, but we're not getting committed to one right now, though NVIDIA obviously takes most of the investment.
mm,
So to give you an idea about NVIDIA is roughly about 70%. I mean, AMD is about 25% and Intel is about 5%. I'm also
mm.
looking at working with a few other companies which are optimizing the infrastructure for inference because
Yeah.
our entire preparation is to get to run the inference workloads. We
So,
know.
do you work with companies like Grok,
No, I work with companies who are actually building the hardware. I mean, like there are companies like D-Matrix. Uh,
D-Matrix? Yeah.
yeah, so these are the guys who are building very specific hardware
No,
for.
by the way, Grok, I think it's spelled with a Q. I think there are two Groks, right? One is Elon Musk. There's another one which is I don't know which one is which, but that one is the one which is doing an inference one only kind of an architecture.
Yeah, I mean, there are quite a few who are attempting that.
Mm,
But every time we add somebody like that, there's a lot of effort from our side because
mm,
in the case of NVIDIA, actually, it's much easier. They have a very good ecosystem of software. I mean, it is like
yeah,
massively optimized on their platform, and
yeah.
they've made a lot of things easy for us to do. But you always like to do things on AMD because you do more things with yourself, with your own capabilities. I mean, the exciting thing is NVIDIA, but to get to make a NVIDIA-based LLM to actually go and work on a use case to go and work on an inference of D-matrix, there is some work to do. It takes 3-4 months to port. You can't.
And who does that? You do it and provide it as a service to your customers?
No, it's a effort between both of us. I mean, the OEM and us. It'll not we can't do it all alone, but it's an effort between both of us.
So for an AI company, assuming they're willing to pay, I mean, they're not getting freebies. They want to come and use, let's say, GPU infrastructure from you. I mean, they can come and what kind of price points are we talking? How is it measured, by the way? Is it a GPU per hour or per minute, or is there any metric on this?
So we put a when we did India AI, we achieved world's lowest price for a GPU service across multiple GPUs. It's a very
Including NVIDIA, including NVIDIA.
primarily NVIDIA. I mean,
Mm,
because the other AMD platform, there are not too many providers. But
mm,
on NVIDIA, like L40S, I mean, we brought it down to about, I think, 67 rupees an hour.
mm.
H200, we are offering it for 140 rupees an hour.
Oh,
The prevailing market rate is like 528, 30 rupees. Um,
seriously, this is where from AWS kind of guys?
no, no, no. AWS and all, no, but none of us can afford it. It's like 10x, 15x in terms of cost. I'm talking
Oh,
about other players in India and abroad.
I
Um,
see.
so, so abroad, typically an H100 is about $2.6 an hour. But we offer it for roughly about $1.6 for H200, which is a much better option than H100. So that's what we're trying to do. So we did a lot of work in terms of trying to ensure that when we have this service, when you're actually running inference, I mean, the inference is actually delivering business value, and you
Sure.
can't do it with such high prices. I mean, so we worked a lot on pricing and brought it down.
Wow,
It's a
that's
global
fantastic.
reach,
And
Ram. I mean, MD. I mean, there is no nobody who offers it at this price.
fantastic, fantastic. And you use the, I think NVIDIA came out with a later one as well, right? What is it? Blackwell.
Yeah.
You have that capability as well?
Yeah, I mean, we are adding B200. But so in this, when you're building this infrastructure, you actually need to plan for what you need for the next 3, 4 months. I mean, you can't plan a lot ahead. So we are just trying to build ramp up capacity as it gets consumed.
Mm,
B200 is the next investment, but now all of us know the roadmap is very big. There are quite a few challenges in actually deploying. It's not about being able to buy it. It's about
mm.
being able to host it and run it. So the challenges are very different. For example, next year around this time, my data center should be capable of handling 600 kilowatts per rack, which, just to give you a
What
perspective.
is it right now? What is it right now?
So if I'm just running my cloud, I'm consuming 6 to 8 kilowatts.
Mm,
And if I'm doing AI, I'm doing 100 kilowatts. So if you compare to an AI rack, I mean, so we are talking about 6 times increase in power density, power and cooling density. But if you're comparing with a general purpose compute, it's like 100x improvement. And so the dynamics have pretty changed pretty much. There's a lot of engineering to be done. Just to
mm,
give you a perspective, a megawatt, I mean, a 100 megawatt data center is now 120, 130 racks for us.
mm,
Whereas if you go and see a 100 megawatt data center today, I mean, from anywhere else, I mean, you'll see a very large building.
mm.
100 racks is about 6,500 square feet. It's like my house. I mean,
Wow. And so this entire engineering you have done, you've actually built the capability for that.
we have, I mean, so we work with the OEMs. It is, I mean, obviously the input comes from the OEM,
Mm,
and we are working that. We are achieving this with new technology called liquid cooling, and we are
mm,
adding certain value-added stuff to that so that we
mm,
run it at very low, very high efficiency of power.
mm, mm, mm. Cool. So I mean, everybody kind of talks about it and is concerned about the fact that India overall, we are kind of behind the curve on capacity and, we need to move faster and, all of this. So where are you on this? Are we really behind? Where do we need to go from here?
So we may be behind if you look at consumer use cases and this struggle of building a better model all the time. I don't
Mm,
think we really have to I mean, go into that race, because I think our focus should be on how do we leverage it, I mean, for our productivity and our business productivity. And I think there we are not late. In fact, almost every single customer of ours is doing something with AI, and they have serious plans to work with, and that's how we will progress. But my opinion, yeah, is that we should not really go in that race of
mm,
trying to build language models and all that, because there are plenty available in open source. We
yeah.
can always pick those, fine tune them, and leverage them. There are people who are.
So have you built a service with the DeepSeek?
We have DeepSeek available in public platform and on our website for people to use it. What we did was we quarantined it. I mean, so it doesn't it talks to only the front end server for which React interacts with the users. So we are kind of monitoring whether it's actually taking out any data and all. We believe it's a very good model. It's a new way of handling the queries compared to how a Llama 3.3 and all approach it. So the way they work are totally different. So I think we like what ChatGPT does, but sorry, this thing does. But we still, when we actually do use cases for our customers, mostly we stick to Llama 3.3. We just pick the language and reasoning capabilities and then add the functionality that we need and we work with it. So it's not that we have used it for enterprise use case, but you can use it in public domain. We have it available.
I see, I see. So you're a person of the opinion that we shouldn't be, running after the building another DeepSeek and all that. We should build more models which are useful to us.
Yeah, so for example, we are building a model. What we are doing is that accounting is very complex in India. I mean, it's not just the not just the framework, but the way it is interpreted, and for the last. We actually looked at cases from 1969 to now. So about 9 lakh plus documents we had to look at and learn from it. I mean, the model had to learn from it. And there is company law. So what we did is we are doing a model for finance professionals in the companies. Basically, this will give them ready-made query. Query answer in terms of what needs to be done at certain point. And it is more or less as good as a chartered accountant today. But of course, it has much more data at the back end, and it can give you very good citations and proof that this approach is actually correct, and it was how it was interpreted in courts and all that. So what we're trying to do is build models which can be readily used for practical purposes, and that's what this will be. We will leave it for
So if you don't mind, let's just double click on that. So this is for enterprise, right? So which means if I'm in a large enterprise, I can use this model of yours
yeah,
and feed it my financials. Is that right?
yes.
And after that, if I'm a company which has been around for a very long time, I can take my last 30 years of financials, give it to it, and then what? I can do all kinds of analysis out of it.
Yeah, not only that, you can actually, so where we want to take it is it can actually do audit for you internally. See, the thing about audit is today in India, you need somebody to sign off. So we're not saying it will replace a chartered accountant, but it will take you up to the audit. Not just do financial analysis. So it will validate it against the established law and the company law and the accounting standards. Um, there are models available for visualizing your business financials, but this model is specific to India because it understands Indian accounting standards and Indian corporate law, and all the it has an understanding of all the interpretations of the law from 1969 to today. So that's the value add that went into it.
Okay. Okay. Wow. And this model is available for use for enterprise as
No,
well?
not yet. We are getting it ratified by some experts, that model. So maybe in 2-3 weeks we'll put it up. What we want to do is we want to leave it for free, but kind of build flavors of it. If you want to get internal audit done by the model and all that, you get it done on a paid basis. But we will leave it for every financial professional to use it.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. I mean, all the best. All the best. When does this come out now? What's your
Two,
expected
3 weeks.
2-3 weeks away?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
It's
Now
really
you
good.
all
Is that
so
when you go public, you need to ensure that there are no chinks in the armor.
Sure, sure. Now you talked about how your growth. I mean, you do you have now visibility into how your data centers are going to grow, or especially GPU capacity forecast for the next 1 year, let's say?
So we have a problem which we are dealing with. So in India, if you see, there are roughly about 24,800 GPUs already deployed. And what happened with Joe Biden's government is that on January 13th, they kind of put a restriction on total processing power on India. So that amounts
Oh,
to, if it's only H100s, it amounts to about 50 odd GPUs. But if you take B200s, we'll be ending up with only about 36,000 GPUs. There is a genuine restriction in place. This restriction at this quantum is for India and China. There are, I think, 18 countries which don't have restrictions, and everybody else have got much further restrictions. So basically, it's a sad scenario for us. In all probability, this will get solved, but it may take a couple of years to do. So it's not that we can just ramp up how much ever we want. I mean, so if I have to serve global markets, maybe I will not be allowed to do that because I will cross the threshold very quickly. So our current plan is to try and push it to about 12,000 GPUs. But in my view, since there will be hyperscalers also deploying GPUs and there are other guys deploying, I will not be able to deploy more than 8,000 GPUs in the next 3 months. I mean, it's a problem we have. I mean, it's not a free flow of you have money, you can buy GPU, is not like that. The
mm,
interesting thing will be what will happen after that for an enterprise wanting to build their own capacity and stuff like that. It is becoming ridiculously complex in that scenario. But this is the first step that we want to cross. If we cross that, I think India needs quite a uh,
more.
lot of compute capacity because unlike cloud, what I had been doing so far, cloud doesn't touch all the enterprises, but AI will touch every enterprise.
Right.
There is no question that anybody will not use AI in some form. So
Yeah.
the scope is like significantly larger than cloud.
And just go through the numbers again. You said you are at 2,400. You can go max till 8,000. Is that correct?
No, no,
Is that what I heard?
India has 24,000 GPUs. The max
24,000. Okay.
you can go with current generation, the max you can go is about 42,000. But with the ones which are coming, it will become
The
less and less.
Blackwell and all that it will restrict it even more.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So
Wow. Wow.
it's a problem which,
And why do you say it will take 2 years to resolve?
so this, so the law says, I mean, because this needs to be, first of all, it's come into force in January and the restrictions come into play from 15th of May. And then,
Oh,
we have to cross that threshold, and then the governments have to renegotiate, do something, and then solve it. Maybe it'll take a couple of years to solve.
wow. And we will feel it. How will it impact us? I mean, when do we? I mean, as people working in enterprises or outside the data center ecosystem, how will we feel or see this? Hitting the ceiling kind of a situation.
In
When will
my
that
view,
happen,
we'll
or
hit it when.
how will we feel it?
If you see our plans and plans of my peers in the industry, in my view, we can hit the ceiling as early as June to August timeframe.
This
Uh,
year?
yeah, this year. So it's not a free flow. I mean, but I mean, but that's reasonable capacity. We'll get there. We can do something tangible with it. Then the business case becomes that much more stronger. By then, the new GPUs would have evolved, the next generation from NVIDIA and all the others, and they will stabilize. So we want to be ready for that point. I mean, where the new GPUs will come and the demand load will be 600 to 800 kilowatts per rack. So you will see our data center becoming very, very small, but very dense in terms of cooling and power.
Sure.
It's like so a rack is much bigger than a apartment complex now. I mean, in
Yeah.
terms of power consumption. So the dynamics are very, very different. It's good if we don't invest in the next 1 year after June or so, and then adopt the newer model at that time. Maybe we can do inference much better. See,
Okay.
the
Got it.
problem with inference is actually very different from training, because in inference you have a user response to take care. it's not that you can take 20 seconds to think about it and respond. I mean, you have to be able to generate tokens. So tokens per second really become very, very important in terms of how it is used in an inference use case. So I think having better infrastructure coming in after a couple of years is the right time for as the inference.
Interesting. Now, you talked about the restriction on GPUs, and we may hit the ceiling by June, July, August kind of a time frame. What about inference related hardware which you get from a D matrix? I mean, is there any constraint restriction on that?
No, there won't be. So it is when, I mean, it's only counted when it crosses the certain threshold. So it's not counted. So you can buy the lower end GPUs and do inference.
Yeah.
But see, it's like this. I mean, if you take an MI 325X of AMD, I
Mm,
can split it into 8 pieces. I mean, the card. When I
mm,
do that, I can run the lowest component. I mean, we sell it for 27 rupees an hour. I mean,
mm,
you can genuinely run significant use cases there. So so if you have a very good architecture and you're able to split it and run multiple inferences on it, it's a much better way of actually responding to a user request than trying to put lower end GPUs and more of them. Um, so the fundamental thing everybody should believe is that scaling up delivers performance much better. When it is scale out, the performance, there is a lot of give and take in a scale out kind of scenario.
So, who are the right people to be thinking about this before they come to you? I mean, is it the model builders need to be thinking about it in terms of how they're going to utilize the capability you're providing, or you
Yeah.
participate with them?
Oh, I mean, I'm willing to work with every startup to actually work with them to help them understand when they actually deliver a use case. I mean, what is the cost of running it at scale? So if you see MD, what we've done is we put few public models on our website. So I have a developer assistant called Ada. There are about 2000 plus developers on it. I
Mm,
have a Llama 3.3 model available called, we call it Aurora in terms with the front end and all that stuff.
mm,
I have more than 20,000 users. What we are
mm,
doing is, why are we doing it public for free? It's not that we're trying to compete on utility with ChatGPT or something like that. It's about trying
mm,
to understand what kind of concurrency can we achieve
mm.
on what kind of infrastructure. That's what will allow us to understand the costs involved in running it at scale. So that's what we can share with the people who want to really deploy a use case for an enterprise or a public use case, which a lot of them don't understand today in terms of running it at scale.
Sure, sure. And for a moment, let's just talk about power. You did talk about the power requirements for many of these. How do you see we needing to scale our power availability for all the data centers over the next a year?
Here, I think we can easily manage, but
Mm.
you shouldn't laugh if I'm going
Beyond
to tell
that,
something. I mean,
sorry.
you shouldn't laugh if I'm going to tell something. So, what we are thinking is that it's not appropriate to actually put pressure on India's power grid with AI. I mean, so I actually reached out to Rolls-Royce, I mean, and I'm trying to figure out few other companies, try and see if we can deploy a micro reactor to deliver power. So today, you have micro reactors which are available to be deployed, which are like nuclear reactors. I mean, which
Mm,
can be deployed. They start from 10 megawatt modules, and they can
mm,
go up to 100. So I was thinking that in about 2 3 years, if we
mm,
can build a gigawatt data center powered by nuclear power, that's the
mm,
best thing that can happen for the country. So
mm,
every minister I meet, everybody I meet, I'm trying to propose this and trying to figure out, whether they would allow us to go in this path. And if you're the first one, obviously you'll have a lot of resistance around it.
mm,
But these days, we get a lot of attention from I mean, everybody in central government talks AI now. So
mm,
we're getting a lot of attention, but once we are able to budget it, we want to go with a proposal and see whether we can really do it. If we can
mm,
achieve that, I mean, a gigawatt powered data center with nuclear, that's the best thing that can happen to India. because
So what kind of capex involved in that? If you're talking about a gigawatt,
I still
uh,
I don't know. I mean, so I know, so what we have, where we have reached is the feasibility part of it, in terms of actually being able to deploy something safely for commercial use. That has been solved. Now we need to figure out the budgeting part of it. So I will be discussing with Rolls-Royce and other companies. I mean, and trying to figure out what is the cost of deploying. Maybe, in about 2, 3 months, I will go with a proposal and see. It's government can say I will provide you 1 gigawatt of power and all that, but that's not the right thing to do. I mean, the right thing is to solve it for long term. I mean,
correct.
instead of and this is a very good option because it gives continuous uninterrupted power. This is the best way to power data centers.
And you have the ears of India AI mission as well, right? I mean, they would be definitely listening to this.
No, no, it's amazing. I mean, even when you talk to Sri Ashwini Vaishnav and all that, I mean, these are amazing people to talk to. I mean, because they are very knowledgeable. They understand the nuances very well. I think I have no problem in actually. I need to get there in terms of having a serious proposal to take it to them. I genuinely believe that if my proposal is serious enough, I mean, it will be blessed.
Of course. And I think I mentioned to you, I should mention to others as well. 2 weeks from today, which is April 3rd, we're going to have Mr. Abhishek Singh, who is the additional secretary of METI, which is the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology from central government, on our podcast. By the way, he's the person who pretty much owns the India AI mission, and he's going to be talking to us. So this is a great lead up to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, he's very much aware. I mean, the beautiful thing is the comprehensiveness of that initiative, and the amount of progress they made over last 1 year. So it's not just about trying to give GPUs at a fair cost to the industry and academia and all that. They are subsidizing it as well. But more importantly, on all the other areas, I mean, in terms of providing a data set for training, they've got initiatives to support skills. They're doing a lot of skill development courses. So across 7 pillars, they're doing plenty of things. I don't know of a country which is actually doing such a comprehensive program.
That's wonderful to hear because we keep hearing bits and pieces of this through the media. So hopefully, I mean, one of the objectives of talking to him 2 weeks from now is to kind of connect all these dots and to all of us to understand what really is going on behind the scenes. So this is great. By the way, folks, I don't see any questions coming up on the Q&A box, so please feel free because we'll continue chatting. What's the time now? It's 38 minutes since we started. So please put up your questions, to ask Raj here. Okay. I saw on your website, Raj, something called Speed Cloud. What is that?
So we run two platforms, MD. I mean, one is a platform powered by VMware. I mean, that is what we do is we tailor it specific to an industry like financial services or government. But we wanted to build a cloud based on open source. So one of the important things for the country in the long term is, protecting our digital destiny. So for that, we need to have 3 layers of control. One is, of course, data sovereignty. I mean, we all know. We need, and with the talent that we have, we can get to, operations wise, we can get sovereign in terms of not being dependent on somebody. But to be technologically sovereign, I think the only way to do it is through open source today. So we picked up open source and we built Speed Cloud. So Speed Cloud is positioned head on with any of the global cloud providers, and we provide an alternative. What we commit to our customers is compared to a global cloud provider, you save between 80 to 90%. And so that's a significant saving. And it's not that we don't make good money, it's fair pricing that led to it. Just a couple of points to, just to get there. If you take AWS, I mean, AWS contributes to 69% of Amazon's profit,
Right.
but it's only 17% of its revenue. So they make too much money. I mean, so we don't need,
Absolutely.
we don't have such a big ambition to make so much money. We are making good money. So Speed Cloud is an alternative for global cloud providers, and that's
And
what.
the data is sovereign. I mean,
uh,
you're keeping it here.
So
Am I
it's
right?
technologically sovereign because it's open source built. It is
Mm.
operationally sovereign. Only, and it's operated within India and it's Indians. And we also have certain restrictions from key customers in terms of who's operating it and all that. I mean, so we have certain stringent measures, and of course, data sits in the country, and we don't allow. So we are not subject to any foreign law. I mean, if
Yeah.
you're okay, I'll just extend that because it's an important thing. People are not aware, just like the Joe Biden's ruling.
Mm.
In 2018, US enacted an act called US Cloud Act. That's around the time when GDPR was put in place. Uh,
Mm.
See, I mean, when I see GDPR, I think it's a fair deal because what they're saying is my data, wherever it is, I retain the control. I mean, so you can
Yeah.
process it wherever. I mean, that's how I see it.
Yeah.
But what US Cloud Act says is that whosever data it is, wherever it is under my control. As long
Oh.
as long as it is being provided by a provider who is connected with US. I mean, either you are operating in US, or you are listed in US or you are a US based company. So it's like absolute control over that whole thing. And if you see that, I mean, the sad part is that almost everybody in this country, I mean, you take a TCS or a Tata Communications, I mean, you name Indian companies who are
Mm.
listed there, who are operating in US, are becoming subject to a foreign jurisdiction. Actually, the jurisdiction is called personal jurisdiction. I really don't know how it applies to India, but that's how they made it.
So,
So
which technically means that TCS, because they are listed in US, they have some data in India. That's according to this, that can be whatever called upon by the US. Is that right?
yeah, they have an obligation to store and share.
Wow.
So it's
Okay.
pretty sad. I mean, we see, unfortunately, we keep looking at China because China doesn't do anything very apparently. I mean, they do it, but there are other things that are being exposed to. I mean, if you see the restrictions on the GPU and if you see the US Cloud Act, it's actually pretty a dangerous thing to for the country in the long term. We should have
Mhm.
our sovereignty. I mean, why should
Of
we
course.
give it up
Of
for
course.
whatever cost? I mean,
Of course. Of course. Cool. I think a couple of questions have come up, Raj. Let me open it up. Let me. Okay. What about bandwidth? I read somewhere that Bangalore suffers a disadvantage compared to Mumbai. Huh, interesting question. I didn't know this. There was a bandwidth issue with respect to our cities.
no. No, it's not correct. So basically, see, I'll tell you, when it's consumer,
Mm.
we are importing about 90% of the data. I mean, so for example, you watch a YouTube or, your WhatsApp or your Facebook and Instagram, the data is coming from outside because it's not hosted here. But when it comes to our regular applications, I mean, everything is within the country. Most of the times, it doesn't even touch internet in the sense it gets connected to a peer network, which is, let's say you have a Tata broadband and I have Airtel broadband. I mean, we just exchange on a private network, the data is exchanged and passed
Yeah.
on. So I don't think there are limitations there.
Mm.
The bandwidth, I think the question comes from the thought process that there is a landing station in Mumbai. Yes, there is
Mm.
a landing station in Mumbai, Chennai, and now coming up in Vizag. And most of you are not aware. I mean, we actually have a cable in Tripura. I mean, in Northeast, which goes to Hong Kong. So there are ways and means of going, but India's internet is not dependent on these overseas cables to be available for our internet to run. In
Mm.
fact, I mean everything is sovereign to the country. So,
Mm.
in case we are cut off from outside or we have bandwidth choke, things like Instagram and YouTube will suffer. It's not our business which will suffer. I mean,
Sure.
it will not impact any one of us.
Great, great, great answer. Okay, next question. For setting up own power source for data centers, can green source like solar be integrated?
So we do
Why
that.
not?
So right now in Karnataka and all, there are options available because see, solar is not a continuous source of power. Data center in a given day, about 12 to 20% variance is what happens, but it requires continuous power. So, so most of these solar and wind actually don't allow us to really use it practically. What happens in our scenario is that you can buy units from these companies, bank them, continue to use your utility power, and offset those. But the tax structure is in such a form that the benefit is not so much. Government buys it at some 2 rupees plus, but when we consume power from the utilities, it's 10 rupees from through the buying these renewable sources. I get about a rupee or rupee and a half benefit only. Everything else goes in taxes. So there is wheeling charges and whole lot of other things. So it's not a. That's why I was talking about. We have to look for a continuous power source and not like to power data centers. It shouldn't be solved with solar and wind. They're not sustainable.
What you're saying is basically storage is the one which drives up the cost.
No, I mean you can't store. So if you store, the economics go for a toss. So I have a rooftop solar in our DC. We generate about 260 kilowatts. It's of no use for me now because it's very small quantity. But the moment you put batteries in the picture, everything goes for a toss. All economics go for a toss.
I see. So the only option for you is to give it back to the grid at whatever you said, right? 2 rupees per unit or something like that.
So it's not a yeah, but at least India is building a lot of capacity in terms of with the renewable instead of trying to build capacity with coal or something.
Good. Okay. Any work being done at your data center on government applications for smart cities?
We did few government applications, but not specific to smart cities. I did some work for Election Commission of India. They train about 50 lakh people every year, physically for 3 days. They spent about 25 crores. Now we eliminated their training requirement itself because we have a model which answers them on the job, which guides them on the job rather than trying to figure out 300-400 pages of information. Yeah, but not for smart cities.
Okay, good. Hi, Rajgopal. Thanks for the terrific insight. I love the Finance GPT Gen AI you're working on. Can we team up with you on another domain, say sensors? Oh, I guess so. You should just get in touch with Raj at nextgen.com. Is that right?
Yep.
RAJ at nextgen. So please feel free to get in touch with Raj. Next question: what are disaster management policies? How are your backups done, and how do you take care of those scenarios?
So excellent question, right? So what happened for us during COVID? We were always prepared for machines failing. Machine fails. I mean, there's another machine which will take over and all that. But what happens when your people can't reach office? I mean, it's a very, very unique situation. And we have restrictions from working from home because somebody logs in from an unsecure network and gets into. Unlike an enterprise, we have thousands of enterprises. We give a small entry, it impacts a lot of them. So we can't take smallest of the risks. So disaster recovery is a very big, very, very unique thing for us. I mean, we have practice. So if you take most of the companies, they will be able to switch over. If you take my biggest customer, which is Election Commission, if at all they switch over, their recovery point is only about 2 minutes. I mean, they don't lose more than 2 minutes of data, but they take about an hour to come up. I mean, if there is a disaster like there's fire in my Ahmedabad data center, I switch over to Faridabad. I mean, they'll take an hour to come up, but they won't lose too much of data. But what we did was now after that, we have looked at all kinds of disasters, including riots. So where we have government, I mean, we have actually CRPF or CISF protecting them. But we also have food stored. We have beds to sleep and people to, get ready and, work because during COVID, we actually worked from the data centers and from our offices, we were not working from home.
You just stayed there.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, it was much easier. I had a lot of young people who were working out of these, what do you call them? These co-living places. And it was very risky for me.
Paying guest
Paying
PGs.
it kind of things.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so we hired Marriott Hotel in Whitefield, the whole hotel, and we
I
moved
see.
the entire staff into that for 5 months. So if you ask me about disaster, I think now we need to plan for people also not being available. So you have to look at
Yeah.
many more aspects in terms of planning for a disaster, because it's not just about a site going down.
Sure. Sure. Okay. What is your opinion on India building vernacular language LLMs? Would it not increase the reach of LLMs to rural areas? Yeah, I suppose.
Definitely, for a lot of use cases, I think that's what Bashani is doing.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what is happening with us. If you take a Llama 3.3, it does a beautiful job with Hindi. But what we are doing is we're working with a startup to build trilingual models, because in India we don't speak one language actually. We actually speak multiple languages. So we have to start building um, models which can understand multiple words mixed into a sentence. So very, very important thing to do. I think there's a lot of work done by Bashani. In fact, we don't use much of Bashani's work, but we use a lot of work that was done by IIT Madras. They have put a lot of open source models. These are very, very good, and we use quite a few of them.
Cool. Okay. Okay. If India mandates that all data flow within the country must be stored in local data centers, similar to China's approach, how long would it take for the industry to adapt? And what would be the key requirements? I know it's a very hypothetical question, but let's go for it.
No, I mean, if you see, take a look at what Elon Musk did with Twitter and all that, right? When he developed these models, they put 160,000 GPUs in matter of months.
Yeah,
So,
I know.
I mean, if you mandate it for them to,
Colossus. He called it Colossus, right?
so
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a mandatory and if they're losing business, they'll come and put it here. I mean, there is no choice. They will move. I mean, so, but it's just that, government plays it little balanced, because they also need, there are many more things that come into play when it's, dealing with very large global companies. We want their investment and we want many other things. So I think they balance it out and they don't insist on it. But I don't think it's a time issue. It is a more of balancing issue.
Okay. Thank you guys. There are a lot of questions pouring in. I work with large healthcare imaging data and build applied AI computer vision software components for disease detection. Okay. Using external cloud providers has become really a cost overhead to commercialize the solution. Is it possible to use your infra for this? How can I approach? Please, I just read out. Let me read it out again. It's Raj at NxtGen, spelled NxtGen.com. Get in touch with Raj.
Yeah, man, most welcome. These are exciting things to do, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. If we have a legacy ERP system, would NextGen be able to help us make it intelligent?
Oh, this is an interesting thing. Actually, one of the first things you should use Gen AI is to, modernize your applications, because we always think that it can generate code, it can generate code. So there is a company called CSC in India. I mean, they had a payment application which couldn't run on 64-bit operating systems. It was running on 32-bit. So it took us 7 or 8 minutes to assess the security loopholes, and we gave them a 49-page report. And then they said, look, if it is so insecure, I mean, we should modernize it. So matter of minutes, you can modernize it, and you take few days to test it. I mean, so I think the first thing that you should do, if you have source code, the best way to do it, I mean, best use case for Gen AI is app modernization. It works amazingly. We can assist anybody who wants to do it. I mean, it's a very important use case, but you need the source code.
Yeah. I see a lot of companies use that way actually of modifying use code with Gen AI now, with LLMs.
I mean,
Yeah, it's
It's pretty easy.
Yeah, okay. With the launch of NVIDIA Blackwell and AMD catching up, compute density is increasing rapidly. How will this shift impact data center dynamics in terms of efficiency, scalability, and energy consumption? You kind of touched upon it. Maybe you want to say that again, Raj.
Yeah, I mean, so two challenges. One, the per rack power requirement is going up to 600 kilowatts and more. But one of the good things, two things that you should be aware. My data center investment, when you look at a 100 megawatt data center, the data center capex, not on the Blackwells and all that, but from the infrastructure, which is power and cooling, has actually gone down by 10x because we don't build very big buildings and pump a lot of air everywhere. I mean, so in terms of efficiency, we are targeting an efficiency of 1.15 PUE, but I think we will definitely achieve 1.2 if PUE is understood. So in terms of efficiency, power usage efficiency is PUE. But if you look at any traditional data centers, they operate between 1.6 to 1.8 PUE. That is, they burn about zero point 0.6 to zero point 0.8 watts for every watt of compute for cooling it. And we brought it down to about 1.2 now. I mean, zero point 0.2, and then I think we can improve it further as well. So with liquid cooling, things have dramatically changed. You've used most of the power for compute, not for cooling.
Cool. Uh, why why were the data centers distributed at locations? And is the strategy same for AI? I think the question is why distributed. I think the answer is kind of obvious, right? You want to be. I think it helps latency also, right? Especially if you want to do stuff at the edge.
Yeah, I mean, if no, I don't think Edge is ready yet. I mean, so I mean, we have use cases for Edge yet. I've got 36 Edge locations, one in Jammu and other in Tripura, one close to
Ah,
Pakistan, other close to China. So I
ah.
mean, so we have, but I don't have use cases. So one of the things that
So
we are
you built it out without use cases, is it? You built it out over there.
it's a small, tiny piece. I mean, it takes about 2 crore rupees to build one small thing. It's
I
a
see.
integrated rack. It's not very expensive to deploy, but it
Mm,
helps you to start talking that thing. In fact, we have one in IIT Jammu.
mhm,
So we have what we are experimenting is things like if we are going to do biometric authentication of voters
mhm.
in the next Lok Sabha election, Edge is the way to do because I don't want to. I mean, I biometric analysis. I don't want to transport so much of data to central location. So
Right.
Edge is evolving. It is not yet there.
I see. But technology-wise, it's there, right? It's not yet there
Yeah.
based on use cases. Is that right?
Yeah, technology wise, in fact, what's happening is the CPUs are becoming very smart and they can
Mhm,
run inference reasonably well. So, in my
mhm.
view, when we do edge, the CPU itself takes care. We may not really have to deploy GPUs to run inference at the edge.
Yeah, Raj, just for the benefit of everybody, can you just talk a little bit about Edge and the usefulness of it?
Yeah, so basically, edge is, I mean, so for example, India, I mean, what I believe is that we should have a small compute footprint in every district headquarters because we are taking compute closer to the person who's actually using it. Today, what is happening is whenever we do something on our phone, it actually travels multiple thousands of miles and then, kilometers and then gets computed there. So by actually bringing it closer, you actually reduce the amount of time it takes to process. But this is important for things like latency sensitive applications. Earlier, people thought we needed Edge to actually disseminate video, which is not required now because we have protocols which started caching and there's content distribution and all that. But wherever there is two-way interaction, I think we take compute closer to the user, it helps. So that's the use case. So if you're doing, for example, when I talked about election commission biometric validation, we are talking about voter going to a polling booth. I mean, let's say he does a facial recognition or thumb or whatever. We should take that information, validate, and come back. And if you're going to do it centrally, it's going to take too much of time and it may create latency. So we have to look at use cases which are latency sensitive.
Yeah, cool, great. Okay, Raj, we are 8:29. Can we extend by a couple more minutes? I have maybe ask two more questions.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. How will reasoning models change deployment strategies for inference at cloud scale versus enterprise scale?
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I mean, enterprise is cloud scale. I think the question should be population scale versus, end customer scale. So, I think inference side computing is evolving. I mean, I don't know if you all have heard about the new announcements in the GTC. There are things like Dynamo. There is better ways of managing infrastructure to run inference. If you look at Dynamo as an architecture, it's an operating system for GPU infrastructure. It is built for running inference. So, running inference at scale is evolving, and I think it's way too much different in terms of running it at population scale versus enterprise scale. In terms of being enterprise scale, we are there already. Being able to do it at population scale, I don't think we have infrastructure to do it in India yet.
What will it take to do something like that?
So it depends on what we are doing. So let me give you one example. So today we talk to people, agents on phone. That's a pretty easy thing to do. That is, if you're just doing voice interaction. But let's say you want to replace a human and put a avatar there, then you're talking about interactive video and interactive audio. That requires different level of compute. So it depends purely on use case. I mean, if the use case is not multi-model, one model, then I think we can pull it off. But to actually think that there'll be somebody speaking to us on our PC screens or phone screens, I think that's a lot of compute. But if it's just voice, I think we are already there.
Okay. Okay, Raj, I'm going to take one last question. I know there are more questions coming up, but we need to, keep the time as well. So, Indian cities are renowned for traffic and extended power outages. Does power supplied by Indian utility how does power supplied by Indian utility companies impact your operation, and what kind of UPS capability do you need to build?
No, actually, it depends. I mean, normally data centers connect at very high voltage. I mean, at 11,000 volts or 66,000 volts or something. At that layer, when you connect to a grid, the power is very, very stable. So, in fact, in a year, I have an outage of 2 hours, maybe. I mean, that is because the problem actually comes when you step it down and you distribute it in urban areas. My data center is outside Bangalore. It's on Mysore Road, just opposite Toyota Kirloskar. So, we don't have power problems. But if you bring that data center and put it in Whitefield, you have a massive problem. First of all, they shouldn't allow those because you can't, data centers can't put stress on urban electrification challenges. I mean, they shouldn't put those pressures. And I think globally, data centers are actually outside the city. I mean, it should be in an industrial area. Then it's fine. So to answer your question, I have a good stable power. I don't say that it is same thing is applicable to something which is within the city limits.
Excellent. Great. Well, Raj, we've had a fascinating discussion. Thank you so much. And for all our listeners here, you have Raj's email. Directly contact him because I see a few more questions which are looking out for help from you, Raj. So they can all get in touch with you, raj@nextgen.com.
Thank you so much.
So with that, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, I didn't realize we spent an hour already. I mean, so it went pretty cool. I was actually nervous in the beginning.
No, this was fascinating. Yeah, I mean, great conversation. Actually, it's like catching up from old days.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir.
Well, thank you once again, and see you 2 weeks from now, April 3rd. I think the time is different. Wait for the email on that. I think it starts a little earlier. That's going to be a conversation with Mr. Abhishek Singh from Meti. Okay, with that, thanks, folks. Good night.